What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Christian Kuntz Podcast. I'm here with my boys Jesse and Trey. We do not have Swing behind the boards, but he is here today. We're in a little different setup, and quite honestly, it doesn't matter because the guests that we have, we would have recorded this in the river with floaties on if that was the case. I really didn't care. Let's give it up. This is one of the 2026 NFL draft specials that we're doing. We're highlighting some of the most influential players come out of Pittsburgh, and here with us today, not only one of the best to come out of Pittsburgh, but one of the greatest football players of all time. Let's give it up for Curtis Martin. Curtis, how you feeling today? I appreciate you coming on.
Pretty good, man.
Good?
Feeling pretty good. Glad to be here.
No, I've been doing a lot of homework, and the fact that your relationship with your mom and the fact that you moved an appointment today to come on my show, it just means a lot, and I appreciate that. Like that was. I talked to Dan Rooney, and he's helped me, get in contact with you to make this happen. And they told me that you were on a tight schedule, and we were going to make this go down whenever. And the fact that you're on here and you came here today, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure, man.
Yeah. So I want to get into your story because it's so unique, and what we're doing here is trying to highlight Pittsburgh's grit, Pittsburgh's toughness, and the football players that come out of here and why they're so special. And your story is a little different. We kind of highlight guys that come on through Pop Warner days and playing all the way growing up through third grade, second grade. Some guys starting early as 3 years old with pads on that have been playing their whole life. You, a little different, didn't start till high school. But walk me through before high school and what kind of was going on, at home, what was going on in the neighborhood. Like I know you went to Taylor Allderdice and you grew up in, a pretty hard household.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I actually did play Pop Warner. Okay. I didn't play through middle school and high school, okay, and until those final years. And so yeah, that just to correct. Yeah, I played Pop Warner. I played in Wilkinsburg. I played in McKeesport. And I played in Duquesne.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So then you kind of stopped playing ball.
Just stopped playing. Just wasn't interested. Organized football just wasn't something that was appealing to me at that time. And so, I was growing up in the Homewood, McKeesport, Duquesne area, which you all know are not the best areas. And at the time that I was growing up, it was extremely violent. Right. Most of my friends or family members who were around my age were in some type of trouble, or many of them died. Many of them were killed, not just died. And so in an effort to save my life, my mother, especially my senior year, she just came to me and she said, listen, my mother was murdered, my sister was killed, my brother died. She said, if something happens to you, I'm done. She said, so you need to do something after school just to keep you out of this neighborhood. And so football, for me, wasn't something that I was passionate about, wasn't something that I wanted to do. It felt like the lesser of the evils.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, I'm not going to join the band, or I don't want to play basketball. I don't want to play baseball. Football was just the obvious choice for me. Yeah.
Wow. So you realize you're pretty good at football at what point in your life?
I've always known I was good at football. I just didn't want to do it. I was.
Well, I can't really comprehend that. And like I said, I listened to your Hall of Fame speech, and I'm pretty sure you said, the night before is when you became a football fan. So you truly didn't.
Yeah.
You had no interest in playing the game. Yeah. You just knew that this was your way out.
I had been to one Steeler game, and it was just because my mother's boyfriend wanted to take me. Thought it would be a good bonding experience. And I'll never forget it, and this was, again, I wasn't even playing football. And I think Barry Foster was the running back at the time. And I'm watching the game, and her, my mother's boyfriend says to me, you see that run out there? I was like, yeah. I said, I could do that. And he said,
just like that.
Yeah, and he says, no, it looks like you could do that. That professional, it's different when you're down there on that field. I'm like, well, you wouldn't know. I mean, like you've never been down there on that field. I said, but I know I can do that. And we joked about it. And, you know, when he came to my first game when we played the Steelers, I had one of my best games of the season.
Of course you
He said, I told you.
Yeah.
So could you actually share with us the introduction back to football? So I had read that there was a fight at school that a coach had saw you and was like, hey, like we got to get you on the field.
Well, you know, the reality is that it was my gym teacher was the head football coach. His name's Mark Whitgarner. I always tell him he saved my life. I had so many brushes with death by the time I was a senior in high school. I mean, I could tell you some stories that would make you just cringe. And looking back on it, to think that I went through some of these things at 14 and 15 and 16 years old, it just makes me just grateful. I mean, I'm so grateful just to be alive. I feel like I'm playing, you know, with the house's money all life for me now, because look, it's only by the grace of God that I feel like I'm alive. And so, your question was?
Yeah, so there was a fight of some sort where the coach saw you and was like, you got to get you on a football field.
So it wasn't necessarily a fight. We just got into this, you know, just talking, you know how guys talk stuff.
Of course.
And at one point, and I don't remember exactly when it was, but I remember this gym teacher pulled me to the side and he says, you know, Curtis, listen, from what I hear about you and where you're growing up at, and I know what's going on with all your friends. He said, if you don't do something with your life, you're gonna end up just like one of them, dead or in jail. And he said, I watch you in gym class. He said, you are the most gifted athlete that has come through this school. He said, if you play for our team, I can promise you one thing. You'll get a scholarship anywhere you want to go to in the country, any college you want to go to in the country. And he said, and you'll probably end up in the NFL. I said, Coach, I'm just not really interested in, you know, doing all that. I said, college isn't really a reality for me. You know, I said, we would never be able to afford it. He said, but you'll earn a scholarship. You won't have to pay for it. I said, I don't really like school all that much to spend another 4 years after I get out of high school. But long story short, I ended up, I'll never forget, the season had started and I wasn't going to play my senior year. And I walked up on the field and they were prepping for a preseason game, like a scrimmage game. And I walked up there, he got me some equipment. I just stood back and watched the first day. The second day, they started allowing me to take some plays. And when the game came, you know, he put me in. And literally the first time I touched the ball, I ran like an 80-yard touchdown. And from that moment on, I became the starter and, you know, my career began to go forward.
That's unbelievable.
So I'm curious, if you weren't passionate about football, what was your passions at that time and what are currently your passions outside of football?
You know something, just to be very frank, growing up in those environments, and I'm sure you guys are kind of familiar being from Pittsburgh. At the time I was a senior in high school, I remember telling someone that I can name at least 30, 35 of my friends or family members that had been killed, not died from cancer or something like that had literally been killed. And so at that age, for me, survival was like my job. Like I was really surviving because I knew if something happened to me, that was going to kill my mother, you know, my mother literally had to look at her mother lying in the bed with a knife in her chest and a broken neck and blood everywhere. And a guy murdered her for some, you know, drug money for like $140. And so that devastated her so much that she was literally just living for me. And so, you know, you asked what I was interested in. The only way I could say it is just survival. I wasn't thinking beyond that. I wanted to just live till I was 21 years old.
And that's so true. I feel like for so many kids in Pittsburgh that people don't talk about, right? Like you're a walking survival artist in that way, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of kids out here, like, they're going through those same things in those areas to this day. So like, I commend you for being able to still walk in your light, man.
Yeah, they may not articulate it that way, right, but you could sit so many of these kids down who come from where we come from, and you had that same conversation with them and ask them what they want to do with their lives. And most of these kids are so focused on just eating something, having clothes on their back, and surviving.
Yeah.
You don't, I describe it as almost as though your dreams are smothered, by all of your circumstances. So you don't really dream in those situations. You're just like, every day, my mother told me that every day I went outside, she was worried that whether or not I would come back.
Yeah. Even in your Hall of Fame speech, it wasn't chasing the dream of playing football under the big lights. It wasn't the money or the fame. From what I understand, you were playing solely for survival. And I think that's like a huge thing, because like Christian, I'm sure you grew up like dreaming about playing in the NFL, right? As most people do. But your, circumstance was, I got to survive, got to make sure my mom's proud and, feels good. So, yeah, it's just a different perspective, what I think people are accustomed to.
So we're into high school now, and you were in an era where, give or take a couple years before or after, Dan Marino, LeVar Arrington, Tony Dorsett, like some of the biggest names in football history. Did you have any idea of these guys when you were coming up? And like, you had an idea of who these guys were? Did you have any, Tony Dorsett being at Pitt, was that an idol of yours, or was that kind of like, I'm going to Pitt because I'm playing football and this is my way out?
Yeah, no, I went to Pitt simply because it was the closest place to home.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was a way to be away from my environment because I would stay on campus.
I got you.
And so I didn't even take football seriously. I didn't take college seriously. I was smart enough to just make good grades, So that just came very easy to me. And football was the difficult part, just simply because of the commitment that you had to make to play at a collegiate level. And internally not wanting to do it, but knowing that I had to do it to stay here, like that was how it started off for me.
Wow. Because I was reading up on some things. Your first 2 years, I think you got injured and you didn't really play. And then coming into your junior and senior season, obviously you had 1,000+ yards, and ended up getting drafted in the 3rd round. What was that feeling like, knowing where you came from, getting drafted in the 3rd round? Bill Parcells obviously played a huge role in your NFL career, but what was that feeling like, getting drafted, knowing, where you came from with your mom and everything else?
Something, for me, it was more of a...
Money?
No, money was the least part of it. For me, it was so, it wasn't realistic to me to, number one, I didn't want to do it. And true story, I even said it in my Hall of Fame speech. When I got drafted, all my friends and family, we were all there in the living room and they were jumping up and down. And I just told everyone, I said, I don't think I really want to do this. I said yes to Parcells, because back then the coach would just call you. And I remember Parcells saying, son, we wanted to know if you would like to be a New England Patriot. I said, yes, sir. And I hung up the phone. And right afterward, I said, I really don't want to do this. And there was a guy there who said, well, Curtis, all those other things that you say you want to do, because by that time, I had really developed a passion for helping young kids who come from environments like mine to see beyond it. Even though I wasn't, the best example of it, I at least made it as far as anyone that I knew. And so I developed this passion to just help people's lives be better. And I had talked about it a lot with this guy, and he said, Curtis, all those wonderful things you say you want to do for other people, maybe football's that vehicle that you've been blessed with to do all of those things. How else are you going to have the money? How else are you going to have the reach to touch these people's lives? And it just seems like a light bulb came on. And from that moment on, it's like, because I had a purpose that was bigger than the game itself, that's what really motivated me. That's what focused me, because, everyone in college, all the coaches, all my teammates would tell you, I did everything to not go in the weight room. That's why I was always injured. I passionately hated to lift weights. I didn't like working out, but I was the type of guy who would do everything that I needed to do, and I was just relying on the talent that I had to keep me on the field. And for me, whenever it ended, and I felt like I really didn't care. But once he said that to me, that really, it's like it turned something on in me.
Yeah. So was there a fear of going into the league, or was it just generally like you didn't have like that purpose yet? Because you were living a moment that everybody would, die for, right? And you're kind of questioning if you really want to do it. Was there a fear? Was there some self-doubt, or was it really just uncertain of like what you're doing with this? It didn't feel like you.
You know what? I just felt like it wasn't something that I just desired to do. And in my mind, I know how I am. If I'm really committed to something, I'm gonna go all out. If I really want to do something, in my mind, I'm gonna be the best at it, right? And I was finding it hard to have that type of mentality or attitude towards football, and it developed over time. Yeah.
So after your rookie season, offensive rookie of the year, what was your mindset like? Did it kind of flip where, okay, now I'm gaining a little more fame, a little more notoriety to be able to do the things off the field that you wanted to do? Or was it still in a mindset that I'm doing this to get to that point?
No, by the time I made it to the NFL, I was there.
You were there.
Once I accepted, went in, I was there. A lot of people don't know this, but my senior year, I played that first game of the season, had the game of my life, best game I've ever had in college, had like 250-something yards, a couple of touchdowns against one of the highest ranked teams, Texas. And then the second game, I got injured and missed the rest of the season. So the likelihood of me going to the NFL was, especially I was injured my freshman year, sophomore year, only missed one game my junior year, and then I missed all my games my senior year. So the NFL you usually don't make it to the NFL with that type of history. And so when that senior year, once I got injured, it came towards the end of the year, and I had an opportunity to come back and play one game just so that I would be eligible if I wanted to go into the pros. But because I would only play one game, I think I still had the ability to redshirt and come back and play another year in college. And I remember going to the coach, and in his defense, I think he was just trying to scare me into staying into college. But I go to him because I say he's the only person who could probably give me the right type of advice. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in college or if I wanted to just take my chances and try out for the pros. And I have a meeting with him in his office, and I ask him the question, and he literally snaps out on me. I mean, what are you talking about? There's no way you could even think about going to the NFL. You can't even stay healthy and, at a collegiate level. You think you're going to be able to survive in the NFL? You won't even be able to survive there. Are you talking to an agent? He started accusing me of talking to an agent. And, I'm sitting there almost like in shock because in my mind, me and this coach has been pretty cool since he's been there. And I'm trying to get some almost fatherly advice from him. And he approached it that way. And again, I wasn't the same Curtis that I am today. I was still kind of hood Curtis, so. And so after he goes on a tirade, towards me. And when he finished, I said, you know what, sir? I'm not going to be disrespectful the way I really want to right now. I said, but thank you, because you gave me my answer. And the one thing I know for sure is that I won't be playing for you next year. I'll either be home or I'll be in the pros, and I'm fine with either one. And I got up and walked out of his office.
Wow.
And
That's a bar, by the way. That's a bar. That was a bar. I'm just saying that was a bar. You dropped like that one.
Yeah. And you know something? From that moment on, he and I were like, he blasted me in the media, and the media talked about me and everything. But at the end of the day, I've come to realize as I'm more mature now, that sometimes life gives you the answers you want and you need, but not in the way that you want them. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, because it didn't come in that package that we would want it, we don't grasp the opportunity that's lying in whatever that problem is or whatever. But I look back, and I actually went back to college and thanked him personally, shook his hand and said, listen, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that you were just wanted me to stay because I was, a good player on the team. But I've always had respect for you, and I sincerely want to thank you because that was the only thing that you could have said that would have pushed me into the pros. Anything else, I would have probably stayed in college. And I said, but I sincerely thank you. This isn't sarcasm or look at what I did now. I'm just really grateful. And he and I became pretty close before he passed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I did not know that. So I want to move forward a little bit to you going to the Jets. There's obviously a rivalry.
Go to the Patriots first.
Patriots, but moving forward after your time into Patriots, then moving to the Jets. There's a rivalry between obviously the Jets and New England. What was that like? How were you taking the criticism of kind of leaving New England and going to the Jets? Because I know you got some backlash. I was watching some stuff. People had an X over the jersey number and everything else. So what was that like, that whole transition?
Man, I have a pretty laid back demeanor, and a lot of my teammates, even people who know me, we joke about how I seem to turn into a different person when I get on the field, And when I'm on the field, it's all about dominate. It's all about crush your opponent, like no mercy. My mentality really shifts there. And when we were going back to play New England and I was playing for the Jets, I was staring down Parcells this was when he left.
He left. You were looking
He
at
left when I was on the Patriots still. I was staring him down. I was almost like provoking him to say, because for me now, you're the enemy. As much as I love you, for this 60 minutes, you are a pure enemy of mine. And I was determined to have my best game. And every time I played against Parcells, whether that was in New England or, like when I went to the Jets with him and then he went to Dallas, wherever, I would always have my best games because of I just wanted to really dominate in those moments. Yeah, so for me, going to the Jets, it was almost like playing New England was like playing your brother, playing your big brother who now you want to prove to him that you can do it without him and you can still be successful, so.
What would be like, I know a lot of people like hearing some guys welcome to the NFL moments or a moment you vividly remember. I know you talked about your Vegas, where you played against Las Vegas or whatever they were called before, Oakland Raiders. You got knocked out. You were kind of like in the other team's huddle.
Yeah.
Do you have any other stories kind of similar to that or something that vividly stands out in your mind where you're like, yeah, that guy got me or you got that person?
Oh. There's so many of those. I will say the hardest hit that I think I've ever taken was from Bill Romanowski.
Oh yeah.
I heard him telling a story on one of the talk shows, Larry King. He was on Larry King. And it sounded like he was somewhat apologizing because I think he was on something that had him all hyped up. And he talked about how he literally tried to knock my head off. And he literally, if my head wasn't attached to my shoulders, it would have came off. We ran a play and like they throw me the ball all the way over to the left, but Bill Romanowski had to go all the way over to the right to cover someone else. So I catch the ball and I'm like trying to, shake everyone and everything, and I cut back. And in my film, you can see Bill Romanowski running from way over here, full speed, And when I cut back, it just happened to be right into him. And he hit me right here on the side of my chin. I'll never forget. The only reason I didn't fumble is because when you get knocked out, your body freezes. So when he hit me, my arms clutched the ball, and I spun around, and I hit the ground and had no idea where I was. And one of the things that, I had become good at, which is to my own detriment, was I'd have my teammates, if they saw me laying there, just shake me, get me up, and I'd hold on to them until I could walk back to the huddle. But
Dude,
that was the hardest hit that I've ever taken. And I'm so glad that the NFL has made so many changes to protect us as players, even protect us against ourselves, because even if I was one of those headstrong athletes who wouldn't come out of the game unless my leg was hanging off, they have people all up in the stands, they have people in the booths, and now the stigma of, concussions and all that is so normalized that they would spot you. Someone would have spotted me, and they would have had me pulled out of the game
Easily.
Yeah.
See,
I'm
crazy.
I'm glad that you're on the player side, because when you talk to players that have played before us in the generations, they're like, you guys are soft.
You're right.
Or,
Yeah.
you guys this, that, because rightfully so, we do look kind of soft compared to
Those times.
back in the day when you guys were literally knocking each other out and you had to shake, your teammates were shaking you to wake you up. Like if that went on nowadays, you'd get flagged from upstairs and you're not coming back in the game.
Team would get fined.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
people would get suspended, everything, which is it. I'm telling you, a lot of the older guys, when we look at the game now, I've never been one to think that today's players are soft, because I know how difficult it is to be out there on that field. It doesn't matter how much you change the rules. It's still very difficult. The level of talent in the NFL is superior to anywhere else on the planet when it comes to football. And you have some of the biggest, strongest. I just came from the combines. There was almost a 300-pound guy who ran a 40 time that was less than 1/10 of a second behind my 40 time.
Yeah, right. Crazy.
And so the talent level in the NFL, and that's what makes our game and our league so good, is that you have this superior level of talent and competition.
Yeah, I'm glad you're on. I'm glad you're on that side, because my dad gets on my, because I'm a long snapper, and they can't line up over the long snapper anymore. And I'm sure when you played, they were killing the long snapper. Everyone was trying to get him out of the game because no one else could probably snap. And my dad, you can't get hit in there, whatever. Like, yes, I can. I still get hit in there. So I'm glad that you're on that side with the players.
The thing that your dad may not see is that there's 10,000 other long snappers that you had to beat out to be in that situation. And so, like I said, you are at the highest level of sport, period, when you're playing in the NFL.
Yeah. So I'm really curious. A troubled, quiet kid out of Pittsburgh, enter the league. I mean, you're a superstar. You're rushing for 1,000 yards every time you touch the ball, right? What is it like with all the attention that you're now getting? I'm sure you were just thrown into like superstardom. What is that feeling like as you growing up? Is there a identity crisis of like, how is this reality? What is your head?
City too.
Yeah, in New York, going from the Patriots to New York, everybody's talking about you. Everybody knows who Curtis Martin is. So what is that journey like from where you came from to now drop you into the league and you're a superstar?
Well, one of the things that I'll say is that had I not took time to focus on me and to consider things like spirituality, which I had never been, like, we didn't go to church when I was growing up. Like, I didn't know. Anyone who was into God, I told them to stay away from me, But after surviving some of the things that I survived, and I told the story during my Hall of Fame speech, and I tell you, man, it is an life-changing experience to feel a loaded gun click against your head and no bullet comes out. Like, it is life-changing. And to have experiences like that and to think that you just did it on your own is foolish. And so at some point in my life, I just decided that, I feel like I was going to, I always thought I would die before I was 21. And so when I was 20, I said, I just have to go to whatever church, in the nearest church, and just tell this God, thank you. Because I know that was him who saved my life all those times. And so for me, had I not done that, you would have saw the Curtis that grew up in Pittsburgh play his life out in foolishness during my NFL career. But going down that path, it humbled me, and it prioritized my life, where money, fame, power, all that stuff wasn't what was important. Like my service, what I can do for other people, how I carried myself. I knew the example that I was. I take being a role model very seriously. You know what I mean? And so for me, it became about, you've been blessed to be in this position. Now, what are you doing with it? Are you using it to fulfill all of your selfish ambitions? Or are you using it to serve and help other people? And that single decision with a real commitment to it is what has always kept me humble. And I like to stay off the radar. I don't need people to know what I'm doing because I'm a genuinely happy, at peace person. I don't need that attention. When it comes, I deal with it, but it's not something I need.
And that's very special, man. And I just wanted to ask you, because the current state of football, right? We've had 3 athletes in the last couple of years pass away due to suicide. And in those circumstances and situations, man, I feel like the world is having a tougher time as time goes on, even though we're more okay with mental health now, right? So like, what were some things that you did while you were playing? Because during the time that you were playing, mental health did not exist. You know what I mean? And I vividly remember it's really like 2018, 2019 is where mental health became okay, right? So like in that position, man, what were you doing to take care of yourself to be the best version of an athlete you could be? And then also, what are you currently still doing to take care of yourself to help out the men and young men out there that are trying to take care of themselves?
Yeah, well, look, I'm involved with a lot of different programs, charities, philanthropic things, and there's a whole lot that I do just by myself that no one will ever know about, because I really value people's personal information, and so it's not something that I would ever publicize. I think that what has been the, and I keep going back to it, what has been the stabilizing part of my life has been my spirituality. Like, if it wasn't for God, man, and again, I'm not a preachy guy, I just know I would be, like, I'm 100% positive that best case scenario, I would be nowhere near where I am today. I might be alive, but I would be nowhere near where I am today. And so I find personally, man, when you can learn to be grateful every single day, you realize that it's not you. When I was talking to the rookies one year, I think it was the year when Jameis Winston and those guys were coming out. I can't remember what year that was, but I remember telling them,
17, 16 or 17.
Yeah, I remember telling them that based on what I know now, if I had an enemy that I wanted to destroy, I'd just give him all the money, fame, and power I could, and I would sit back and watch him destroy himself, because I've watched throughout this entire industry, not just in sports, but in entertainment, and I have a lot of very close relationship with some of the most famous people in the world. And, I also grew up around some of the biggest drug addicts and, a lot of mental health. My father was in and out of the mental institution, growing up and severely addicted to drugs. I feel sorrier for some of the most famous people in the world than I did for my father. and for other people because I felt like there was more hope for them versus them. You know, when you have a whole lot of money, you have a whole lot of fame, you have a whole lot of power, if you don't have the right perspective of life, you'll destroy yourself with those things.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, money is the root of all evil. You know, they say that, and I see it now. You know, firsthand in the locker room. You know, we have a good locker room right now, but you do see guys making some dumb decisions where you're like, well, you know, hey, we're in the NFL, we're on a pedestal right now. Maybe we should, you know, turn another way and do something a little differently because you're acting a fool right now. But you know, that's crazy. I want to go ahead.
Just to the point that you just said, you said money is the root of all evil. All evil. You know, and I'm not
Greed.
necessarily correct. It's more the love of money. You know what I mean? So when your heart is attached to these material things and money, and that's your number one priority above everything else, above people, above God, above life, you know, like that's when it's the root of all evil.
Yeah. And you coming from Pittsburgh, like, and coming from nothing, when you got your first paycheck, like, what was that like for you? Like, do you remember when that hit your account? Did you buy a house for your mom, anything like that? Like, or was that a second thought to you?
You know, it's funny because now the money that I made as a third round draft pick I don't even think it's half of what is the minimum that you can make now today. And so I got drafted as a 74th pick. I was third round draft pick. I was barely making over minimum. I made, my entire contract was, I think, $900,000 for 3 years. And so I was making $300,000 a year after taxes. That's $150,000. And I got a signing bonus of, I think, $191. And I just took it. I bought my mother a house. I bought her a car. And I said, look, regardless of how long football lasts, at least I know I got a place to go to if I ever need a place to live. And my mother, I got her what she wanted. I just said, I'll just keep working, and if I can have more, it'll happen.
What would be some of your advice to a kid coming out of Point Breeze or coming out of Taylor Allderdice right now?
The dice.
A player that's playing in the city league that's not getting any love because they're playing in the city league. What would advice be coming from Curtis Martin, arguably one of the best running backs of all time? What would your advice be to these young men, you know, playing football in the city that are getting no love?
Well, you know, it hasn't changed. Like, we weren't getting any love either. Back when I was playing, it was even worse back then. You know, I think at least now you have social media, you have ways to put yourself out there that we didn't have. Like, we didn't even have cell phones when I was coming out. That's how old I am. And so I would say it's really about who you are and what you do. You know, for me, I always say consistency is my superpower, right? I'm much more consistent than I am talented. You know, you might be bigger, stronger, faster than me, but I'm going to consistently outwork you. I'm going to consistently work on the details. I'm going to consistently make fewer mistakes than you, and I'm going to win. So consistency has always been my superpower. And for any young man, any young woman, I think one of the highest compliments that you can receive from a person is that you're a consistent, dependable person. And I just find in being consistent, it has the ability to change so much in your life because consistency, like, compounds over time. There's this theory, I don't know if you ever heard about it. It's the $1 million gift, or the penny that doubles every day. Yeah. And the long and short of it is that, you know, even after 20 days, that penny that doubles is still only like $5,000 something. But from day 20 to day 30, it's like 10 million. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people would take the $1 million up front instead of the penny that doubles every day. But that's how consistency works. And I've learned to be a student and a believer in being as consistent, as hardworking as you can as possible, and do things the right way. Don't cut corners, don't take shortcuts. Shortcuts never last long, you know? And so for me, the best advice that I could give to a kid coming up is to work as hard as you can. Do everything that's in your power to give yourself the best chance. You can't control what you can't control. And I think not only in sports, but in life, I think a lot of people suffer from trying to control what they can't control.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like right now with, high school kids and even college kids, they see social media and how, NFL athletes or NBA, whatever, professional athletes portray their lives, and that's not real. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not real to be handed, $20 million as an 18-year-old kid, and like, that's just not real life. And I feel like a lot of kids fall into a trap of, they want to live that lifestyle and they want to be with the women and be, out at the parties and whatever it may be. So it was cool to hear, you say that coming from where you've came from, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure, man.
But also understand that a lot of that my mentality comes from learning how to be disciplined. Like, discipline is the key.
And I'm curious on that though, like, with how much shit you've been through, like, how did you stay disciplined? Like, your mom was abused by your father, and I know I heard your story about how she would work 2 jobs and leave the key for you at home. Like, how did you how were you a 7 to 9-year-old kid staying at home till 9 p.m. at night by yourself? Like, how did you stay disciplined? How did you stay grounded in that, knowing that, your mom's at work and you didn't have somebody at home kind of, instilling these, disciplines in you or whatever it may be?
Well, you know something, man? My mother, because she was a single parent mother raising a young boy, she took the approach that she had to be extremely hard on me. So I got a beating for everything. If she told me to drink water and I drank lemonade, I got a beating. I would get real beatings with like belts and, have whelps on my body, switches.
You got the switch?
There's a frying pan story, right? A frying pan story?
Oh, yeah. My mother was ruthless, but is my hero. And I tell her sometimes she feels even bad of how much and hard she used to beat me when I was a kid. But I told her, Mom, if you didn't do that, I would not be as disciplined as I am. That discipline is what helped me deal with Bill Parcells. Because Bill Parcells is hard like my mother, And there were a lot of my teammates who took the other approach, where it's like, oh, he's just this and he's that, and they didn't like him, and in return they end up getting cut. I became one of his favorite guys because I listened, I took what he told me to do, and I did it. I'll never forget a quick story. My rookie year, we're in training camp, and at this time I'm like the 4th string running back. And we're in our running back room early on, and we had to introduce ourselves to the other running backs and tell a little bit about ourselves. And at that time, Dave Meggett and these guys, Corey Kroom, they were like the more senior guys in the room. And I happened to be the last one to speak. And I stood up and I said, hey guys, listen, I know that we're all having a friendly competition here, but honestly, I just feel like a young lion, man. And I'm just hungry. And I hope none of y'all get hurt. I hope you don't have to change your equipment. I hope you don't get tired. Because if I get in the game, my goal was that nobody in this room would ever see the field again. And I'm a rookie, so they're all, oh, go ahead, rookie. And, and Parcells said, yeah, I heard about what you said. One day, we're going to have to see if you could answer that call. And I told him, I said, Coach, you put me in and I'll answer that call. And so he puts me in during goal line scrimmage, which we used to do every single day at the end of practice.
Cracking.
And he says, we're running ride 34, which is just me getting the ball to the right, and ride 35, which is me getting the ball to the left. And he would tell the defense which way we were going to run before every play.
Setting you up.
Hut, they give me the ball. And he told me that I had to jump over the top to score a touchdown while he told them where I was going. We did it 8 times in a row. I scored 3 times out of 8. But that was with them knowing exactly where we were coming and everything. And after that, he told me, he said, I see what you're made of now. He said, I see what you're made of. And in the first game of the season, and this is probably my most memorable moment of my career to this point, it's the end of the game. We're down by 6, playing the Cleveland Browns. We're on the 2-yard line, and I'm in there, and it's that goal line play, and I have to jump over top to score the touchdown. If I score, we win. If I don't score, we lose. And I get the ball, I jump over the top, I get hit, and I got hit just like this when Parcells in practice, but I landed on my feet, and I took a second surge and barely got the ball across the goal line, and we won the game. But that's one of those moments where, like, if I wasn't listening, or if I was saying, this is unfair, or if I was complaining about it, no, I was, all right, you go, give me the ball. And I'm telling the defense, I'm going to score, And so, but that's
The mentality.
yeah.
That's that Pittsburgh confidence, man. I don't think people know about the Pittsburgh confidence. You put a Pittsburgh kid in any situation, bro, like he's ready to fight his way out of it. And just being able to coach, I coach, that's what I do now. So like a lot of the kids that I coach, no matter where we go, 9 times out of 10, Pittsburgh's fighting. Yeah. You know what I mean? 9 times out of 10, somebody from Pittsburgh's fighting. So it's cool to see that at a high level on a national level, right? Like currently we see the Aaron Donalds, right? We see those guys doing those things from a Pittsburgh level, the Christian Kuntz, you know what I'm saying? But like every one of those guys that we named that's from Pittsburgh, you can never say that they have that soft mentality. Because they're just gritty people, man.
I grew up with Aaron's father. Like I was a little younger than Aaron's father, but Aaron's father was I see where Aaron gets it.
Was his dad a big time?
Really, man.
Yeah, his dad's I got a lot of respect for his dad. And when I saw Aaron doing what he's doing in the NFL, I could say, I definitely could see why he's that good.
Yeah, that's incredible.
He's different.
Yeah, so is it even further beyond just football? Like kind of piggybacking off of what Christian was asking, is consistency the thing that you would tell that kid in Pittsburgh at home? Again, outside of even football, if maybe that's not their path, somebody that's looking at all the odds stacked against them, like what are you telling a kid in Pittsburgh, or I guess really across the world, that feels like they have absolutely no shot? What is those real practical things? Because I think a lot of people get information from people that don't understand. Like you could say, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and it's like, dude, you didn't come from this. So what's a realistic thing that you would tell a kid sitting at home right now that's looking to make it out?
Well, I would want a kid to always know that you can create an opportunity.
Love that.
Right? Like you can create an opportunity, and most of the time, your ability to create your own opportunity is based on you having a track record or a consistent way of operating, doing things the right way. It's almost as though I heard a guy say that, God can't bless your disobedience. And I just take that from a context standpoint and saying, like, you can't expect something to go so right for you if you keep doing wrong. Right. And so I think that doing things the right way, it sounds so common sense and it sounds so simple that I think a lot of people don't really value that. And so I've watched so many people, because of their circumstances, cut corners and expect to get this incredible result by not doing things the right way. So the first thing I would implore any kid to do is to don't think that you have to do things the wrong way just to make it out of your situation. There is a right way to do it. And you're not going to understand fully that right way all at one time, but it starts by one right decision at a time. And just consistently do that. I'm telling you, I can look back over my life and see how there was these just building blocks that just kept being laid. And before you know it, you look up and you're like, oh, this person really trusts me. You know, there was a guy who, without this guy, I don't know that I would have made it into the NFL, because my junior year, I had a good year and in college. And this guy, I met this guy, I believe his name was Steven. I wish I could get in touch with him now just to thank him. But he was in charge of recruiting players for the Senior Bowl, right? And the Senior Bowl is like the granddaddy of them all. That's the all-star game of all-star games when you're coming through college. And he said, Curtis, no matter what, I want you to play in the Senior Bowl next year. And he tells me this my junior year. He said, I want these scouts to see your talent. So no matter what happens, here's my card. Call me. I want you in the Senior Bowl next year. Senior year comes, as I told you, I play that first game and I get hurt and I miss the rest of the season. And I'm sitting around one day and I'm thinking like, wow, how do I get out of this situation? Or how do I try to do something positive? And I call this guy and I said, you told me to call you if no matter what. You said no matter what happens, call you. I said, so I'm calling you. He said, oh, Curtis, there's really nothing we can do. This is the Senior Bowl. Like, I can't put you in front of all these guys. Make a long story short, he said, I'll try to get you here, and I'm not sure what position you'll play. I went down to the Senior Bowl weighing 199 pounds and played fullback. But I played so hard and made such an impression on all the scouts that they asked to see me in the running back position. And then I impressed them with the running back position. That's how I got invited to the combines.
That's crazy.
I love that, because that's showing that like none of this was by luck. It was by hard work and, you know what I'm saying, and putting that talent and that effort. But you also keep mentioning, I think one of the most important things about sports is mentorship, right? So you had these amazing mentors in your life that are guiding you along the way, guiding you in this position. Talk about the importance of mentorship and what Christian is currently doing with these podcasts, because this is a form of mentorship, right? So like, talk about the importance of mentorship in your life, but also to this newer generation, this younger generation.
You know something, this is another piece of advice that I would probably give to, someone in your position, Christian, or someone in the NFL, or a professional athlete, anyone, actually. Especially when you're in sports or in something like this. I call them my four corners. And these are four people that over time I've paid attention to, I've listened to, and they are got people who are where I want to be, or people who I really admire how they do things, why they do things, and all that. So there are four people, any time in my life, even to this day, that I'm about to make a big decision, I check in with all four of those people. And if two of them say yes and two of them say no, I wait. If one of them say yes and all three of them say no, I don't do it. If three of them say yes, I'll think about it positively, but most of the time, all four of them are on the same page. And when they all say yes, I feel good about that. So having people who are where you want to be and developing a relationship with them to where you trust them and they trust you, and find people who their only motive is to see you succeed. They don't have a dog in the fight. They're not making money off of you. They don't need you for anything. These four people at one time, I never thought that I would even come close to where any of those people are. But through their wisdom, it has protected me during that phase of my life where I didn't know better.
It's like your own board of trustees. You're taking every single decision to four people, and you need a unanimous vote to go forward with that.
Exactly. And that's a discipline.
I love that. That's actually
You're right. I'm gonna start using that myself.
Yeah, for sure. So
And it takes time. Make sure that you, like, my mother's one of those people, you know? And so, yeah, make sure they're people who, you know, they have no other motive other than to see you succeed.
That's amazing.
So you're a father. You have a daughter, a wife. How would you say that, you know, you're being their board of trustees, and how are you kind of leading them, knowing that, you know, your father was like he was you growing up? Like, how are you kind of implementing your life into your daughter's life, you know, differently than your dad did?
Yeah. Well, you know something? One of my trustees, right? I'm talking to him one day, and this is right before I got married, and we were, you know, I wanted to have kids, and he says, I asked him for his advice on balancing work and family, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, Curtis, let me just tell you this. When it comes to your kids, there's no such thing as quality time. He said, F that. There's only quantity time. And that just stuck with me. He said, because you can do something of quality with them every once in a while, or you could just be around them all the time. He said, there's no such thing as quality time. It's just quantity time. And what I've come to understand is that I like for my kids to just be around me, to see how I function, to hear me on business calls sometime, to see how I deal with situations, and to see how they've grasped things that I didn't even know that they were aware of. You know, I teach a class sometimes to a group of people, and they'll hear the way I talk in those situations, and to hear them saying those same things, acting out those same things, just because of the familiarity of being around me all the time, I can totally see my impact on their lives. And just to give you a quote, this is my little 9-year-old daughter. I'm teaching this class about, you know, trusting people and also trusting God. And she's walking downstairs, and I always ask her, I say, Kai, you have any wisdom for me to tell the group that I'm gonna be teaching? And literally, without, all the time, it's like right off the top of her head. But this time in particular, she said, well, what are you talking about, Daddy? I said, I'm talking about just trusting, being more a trusting person and trusting God also. And she said, well, tell the people that God said, and I'm like, how you? She said, well, tell the people that God said, trust me. I know what I'm doing. I have more experience than you because I've been alive forever. And she just walks out the door and goes to school.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what?
She told the truth, though. She told the truth.
I was just like, that was like, you know, very profound. But the point being is that it's the familiarity. It's the quantity time that I've spent with her, that my wife has spent with her, that allowed her to spit something out like that.
Kids are amazing. I have a 6-month-old at home. It's hard.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
This is hard. This is hard. But it is amazing, and I'm
I
looking forward to quantity time now.
Yeah, there's my daughter, she was going through this phase where she was very scared to go to sleep by herself in the dark. She was very afraid of it. No matter what I was doing for about 6 or 7 months straight, almost every night, I would go into her room and just lay with her and let her lay on my chest every single night. Talk to her about fear, all these things. Now, like, she is the bravest little kid. You know what I mean? And she's that person who will, like, you can't tell her she can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, she's a beast. But quantity time, not even necessarily what I said. It was just giving her that comfort in that time that she's most afraid.
Yeah, just being there.
Makes a difference.
I love that.
Quantity
I'm
time.
taking that quantity time with me.
Never heard that in that perspective. I love that. I really
You're
do.
gonna love that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. She really is. You know, we had our baby during the middle of training camp, so I wasn't around that much. I mean, we were in camp, and you know, you got to be in meetings, you got to be at practice. You know how it goes. And she's like, I'm so happy that it's off season now, and we get to spend this quality time. But I'm gonna take home quantity time today. I appreciate that.
My youngest daughter, she just turned 12, that one I was telling you about when she was 9. I was at the combines and had a really big, important meeting that I had to fly to from there in LA. But her birthday was on the day that I was supposed to fly to LA. So we celebrated her birthday early because of all this. And she was like, Daddy, I know you gotta go, don't worry about it. And we had a great time celebrating her birthday 2 days before her birthday. But at the last minute, I told everyone, I said, look, I'll just have to miss whatever it is. If this opportunity passes us, so be it. I gotta get back home and, celebrate my daughter's birthday with her. I go back home and she was just like, at the end of the day, and it was so subtle, but I know how she is. She came to me and she said, Daddy, I just want to thank you for coming back home. And I see you all the time, you know what I mean? So that stuff that's powerful.
He's prolific, like.
Oh yeah.
Do your daughters, and do they know what kind of, I know your whole goal is, be a better man, but do they know what kind of football player you were? Do they have any idea, how damn good you were?
They grasp it, but they don't.
They don't.
It's almost like we try to make everything very normal to them. So
you ain't normal, bro.
No.
You're an anomaly. It's crazy.
But I'll tell you this, being one of the poorest families in our environment when I was growing up, I almost felt like I had better clothes than my daughters do. We have to force them. My daughters were here with my mother. My mother took them out to the mall, tried to buy them all types of things, tried to buy them some Air Jordans and all this. My daughters was just like, we don't need that. It's okay. We just want to spend time with you, Grandma. We don't need it. And I'll tell you, they would not let her buy them anything. Things, money, they appreciate it, they respect it, they see it as a tool, right? They don't see it as part of them, and that's the way they deal with everything. Yeah. They're not connected to material things. We try to raise them very normally, and my wife does an amazing job.
Yeah. Just real quick, so being as humble as a person you are, do you ever just step back and look at what you've done? Again, coming from where you come from, having this beautiful family, the pride that your family that raised you probably feels, all those mentors. Do you ever just look at yourself in the mirror and do you pat yourself on the back? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, something, man, I'm not an emotional person for the most part, because of what I've been through. It's really hardened me in a way where it's not, I wouldn't even say hard, it's just perspective. All right, we all gotta die. Yeah, I know a lot of people have been killed, but there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm very realistic, right? But the only thing that does make me emotional is when I think about how good God has been to me and how good life has been to me, and feeling as though, it's not that I don't think that I didn't deserve it. I know that I worked really hard for it, but I know it wasn't just that. And so the gratefulness that I have just for life, man, is just, like I say, every single day for me is bonus. It's a bonus, man.
That's beautiful.
I think that's really cool, man. I just want to take note, man, on how wealthy you are. Not because of the money you have, just on how you are as a man, and then on top of that, the family that you have, bro. You're teaching a lot of people what real wealth looks like, because wealth is not what's in your pocket. You know what I mean? So thank you for that, because I feel like I needed that. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure there's somebody going to watch this that's definitely going to need it.
You know what real wealth is to me, man? I'll tell you, this is the one thing. The whole world could blow up, and I could be standing on a little piece of earth on one foot. As long as I have this one thing, I'm good. Peace. I mean, the peace that I've been able to have in my heart, man, and in my mind, when the worst things can happen in life, and I can sit there and look at them and keep my peace and deal with them from a place of peace instead of a place of anxiety or depression or whatever that may be. It's a life changer. It's not a game changer. It's a life changer when you can look at life from a peaceful place and deal with it.
What was a moment of peace? When did that happen for you? Was there a moment?
I think it's something that grows. I think it's something that matures in you over time, and it just gets deeper and deeper, and you become more set in, all right, this is the way life really works. When I was 23, a guy gave me the best piece of simple advice that I ever received. And he knew everything and all the hell that I had been through and everything. And he says to me, he says, Curtis, listen, I know what you've been through, but the best thing you can do in life is to figure out how things work and then work them. That's simple, you know what I mean? But it was just like, and I became very fascinated with how life works. You know, how you do reap what you sow. You know what I mean? You can't take shortcuts. You know, what's done in the dark will come to the light. All of those things. Like, you just start realizing how life works, and you start realizing that your life is really just the sum total of all the decisions that you make. And the quality of your decision is like based on the quality of the information that you have. And when you can make those decisions and be as accurate as possible, like, what you decide to do every day is what creates your life. And if you don't like the life you're living, you just have to start deciding to live differently. And it sounds so simple, and it sounds like I'm, you know, because I've done this, it's easy. No, it's not easy. Life isn't supposed to be easy. That's something that my 8-year-old told me when she was 8. And she wrote up on my board in the weight room, life isn't supposed to be easy. But no, life isn't supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be hard.
That's amazing.
That's unreal. I needed this today.
Yeah,
'Cause you've given me, you know, multiple different things to think about. I'm gonna ride home for 40 minutes after this. I'll probably call Jesse, as I always do, and we'll just talk about, excuse me, the podcast and, you know, what the guest said. But this episode hit a little differently today. I appreciate that. I know we asked you a million things. We didn't even talk about some of the stats, some of those things that I told you. I was like, this isn't going to be like an interview where I'm hitting you with these numbers and everything. We just wanted to talk. And
Well, those are the things that mean the least to me.
yeah,
You know, I appreciate them, but
yeah.
you know.
And that was, you know, in your Hall of Fame speech. I know I keep going back to that, but you know what you said. You want people to say your eulogy. You know, he's an unbelievable person, father, humble, that, and yeah, he was pretty good at football too. So
If I was to say one thing that I would like to leave, and this is more to what you're talking about, just more to life, not anything about sports or anything. And I do a lot of writing, and this is one of my favorite things that I wrote down. And it was really like me analyzing my whole life and saying, if I could capture it, like, what would I say? And it's not all mine, but mostly. And what I wrote down is, I realized that God allows problems in our lives for 5 reasons. Number 1, to direct you. Number 2, to inspect you. Number 3, to correct you. Number 4, to protect you. And number 5, to perfect you. Direct you, inspect you, correct you, protect you, perfect you. When you can learn to look at life through the lens of whatever is going on in your life, all right, is this directing me? Because sometimes we think we want to do something, and in hindsight, we realize, man, I shouldn't have gone in that direction. I should have went in this direction. But life offers you that opportunity to go in the right direction. So is it directing me? Is it inspecting me? Sometimes our motives might be wrong in a situation. And so a lot of times I find that we have to correct our motives before something that we're hoping for comes to fruition. Direct you, inspect you, correct you. Sometimes we have to be corrected because we're going the wrong way. We just that door needs to shut so that and a lot of times we get upset or angry about that. And protect you. There's a lot of things that I thought that I wanted when I was younger that now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't get that. I'm so glad I didn't marry her. You know what I mean? Whatever it may be.
Oh man, I understand that one.
And the last one, perfect you. It's like I believe that life is always helping you learn to make better decisions to change your life.
That's incredible.
Wow. Curtis, thank you very much.
Mic drop.
This is part of our 2026 NFL Draft Special with some of the most influential football players that come out of Western PA, but more so than that, one of the better dudes that we've ever talked
encountered.
to. This is unbelievable. Season 2 episode, I don't know what we're on, but this wraps up our special. Curtis, thank you very much. Guys, thank you. Appreciate you
Thank
guys.
you guys.